All right, welcome back. Another episode of the Empty Gym podcast. First of the new year, first in a while. The holidays and everything and getting back into school and stuff like that. We've been struggling to find a time to be able to get one of these out, but had some free time today with myself, Jack Hobson, and Adam Pollard as well. No Mikey T today. Scheduling conflict. But we thought it was time to get one out for the first time in a while. So we're back with a new episode, and obviously, as we're recording this last night, Purdue and Houston lost, but and we'll get to that. But first, we're going to discuss some football, and more importantly, Bears football, and uh, the decision that came out this morning for from the Bears with firing offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, but retaining head coach Matt Eberflus. So, Adam, I'll hand it off to you. What are your thoughts on this?
Um, First, I want to give the Bears their credit real quick. Firing Luke Getsy had to happen, and I'm glad that it did. But from I think Eberflus's record's like 10-24 or something crazy like that. And what saved his job was Alan Williams leaving the team, and then he got to coach the defense. I think that's what saved his job because he is a very good defensive coordinator, and I would love if they were just be like, hey, you be the defensive coordinator. We'll go out and get Jim Harbaugh, Mike Vrabel, any of these guys, because there are some good coaches that are on like up for grabs right now, and Chicago is kind of an enticing place to go. I mean, obviously you have the city, but you have the number one pick in the draft. You have draft capital. Like you have a young and good defense, and then you have some playmakers on offense. And whether or not the whole Justin Fields thing, whatever happens with that, but like that's a good place to go. And for them to keep Eberflus as the head coach is just kind of a head scratcher. I don't know.
I the thing that makes me the most mad about this whole situation is the fact that Vrabel got fired yesterday, and you didn't even give it a full, maybe a full 24
They didn't even
hours.
like think about it.
It's like when I saw that he was fired, I was like, what is going on? Like,
I
yeah,
texted you right away. I said we need to
yeah,
hire Mike Vrabel.
yeah. I was like, what? He had one down year, and like, I get like the whole uh, Derrick Henry's likely leaving and everything, and that changes the dynamic of that team, and you might just want a fresh start and everything. Like, I kind of get that, but I was like, he took a team that really was not like that great to the playoffs.
He has not had a good team in Tennessee really.
Yeah, like talent wise and like on paper,
But
like
they just
he's
had
kind of,
Derrick Henry and they just run the ball the entire time.
yeah, but and like he was able to take that team to the playoffs three times in a row, and you don't even take a look into him. Like, don't like did they even like give him a call or anything? Like, I don't know. That's the most frustrating thing to me, man. It's just like you don't even try to get better. Like you don't like Getsy being gone. That's great. Like we needed that, and now you got a big Justin Fields decision. And now I think you got to keep him because it's like Eberflus is playoffs or bust next year. I'd assume. I'd hope. I hope we won't allow this mediocrity to continue. I know like if we're close, they'll be frustrating and like I'll see the argument to keep them and be like, we're so close, why restart now? Which is why you should have restarted now and like at least looked into it. Like Harbaugh wants to get out of college before the sanctions and probation and whatever is going to come to Michigan comes because it's coming. Like I don't feel like that's going to be a surprise or anything. It's like he's trying to get out of Dodge right now. It's like you don't even give him a call or anything. Like it's frustrating. It's frustrating. Now you're going to have Justin Fields in his third offensive coordinator in 4 years. So like it would not be surprising to see him struggle next year. And now you got a big decision with your number one pick and what you're going to do with it. So I don't know. It's just a very, very overall frustrating situation.
I think you're right, though. I think that they're gonna keep Fields, and I'm for it. I really am, because I
I
mean
think you
this
have to now.
the stats that come out of, like, first round quarterbacks, just quarterbacks in general in the draft, and I feel like in today's NFL, like, if you don't have a quarterback that's there for like 10 plus years and takes you to playoffs like 6 times, like, always a bust. So that's not how it is. But I think you're right, because if they do, they keep Eberflus. If you're gonna take a quarterback one overall, so like, it's if we're gonna take a quarterback one overall, it's gonna be Caleb Williams. You would want to get him an offensive minded head coach, a new head coach, like somebody that's other than Matt Eberflus. Like, he's a good defensive coach, but we have, if we're gonna bring in Caleb Williams, first overall pick, and get rid of Fields, like, you would think that you would want to bring in someone else. Like, I think that's also, they're probably, they have a plan. Their plan, I think, is to keep Fields. But what it would be even worse is if we just trade Fields now and then we get Caleb Williams and just bring Caleb Williams into the system. Like, it didn't work last year.
Though, if we do that again, that would be 3 straight quarterbacks where, and
That's
obviously
the
we don't
worst
we
possible
don't
outcome,
know.
I think, now.
But
Like, if
yeah,
you were going to get Caleb Williams, like, go out and get a new head coach.
we
Like,
hired
I feel like you have to. Or, you get some stud offensive coordinator.
we draft Trubisky. He had a year of, what was that, Tressman? I think
Yes,
it's
it
his
was
first year.
Tressman, because that was after John Fox, right?
Yeah.
I think he had a year of Tressman. I mean, hey, we'll always have the 2018 Bears, and Mitch looked awesome.
But like at a year of Tressman, and then you fire him, and then bring in a new coach. So now you got a second year quarterback with a new coach. Fast forward, now you draft Fields. He has 1 year of Nagy, and then you fire him, and then he's got a new head coach. And it's just like, how many times are we going to draft a quarterback with a, a head coach that's on the chopping block and like that people wanted fired, and now he's in a playoffs or bust situation. Now that puts a load of pressure on the rookie quarterback, and after that, if he is good enough that you keep him and you try to develop him, now he's got a new offense coordinator, new head coach in his second year. So everything that he learned in year one, just throw it out the window, and you got to do something new. So it's just like, just over and over and over and
It's just a
over
cycle.
again. It's just like, why can't we bring in a GM, bring in a head coach, and bring in a quarterback all at the same time? And like a three people, probably like the three most important things in football are a GM, a head coach, and a quarterback. And why don't we bring three of them in at the same time with the same ideals and same plan and same everything? Obviously, the quarterback doesn't have as much say in that, but like, or you bring in a new GM for a head coach, and now the head coach is like, oh, like what, like, this isn't really my guy. Like, maybe we're seeing stuff different, and then the GM fires the head coach, and then he gets a new head coach and the quarterback, and it's just a cycle of just incompetency.
For me, Eberflus he's just not a good game manager. Like, you see
Three
it over the
games,
season.
3 games that we had a
Yeah,
90%
we had a 10
winning
point lead in the fourth
probability.
quarter. We lost all 3 of those games.
And like, that's like, obviously it's on the players a little bit. Like, even if it's a bad play call, if you execute it enough, like,
Yeah,
you
oh
can
yeah,
scrap
it's
out that.
not
But
all on him.
like like a blown 10-point lead is like 90% of the fault goes to the coaches.
It's just because you see like coaches around the league, like the good coaches. I mean, like McVay, Shanahan. Like, I mean, there's a long list, but just regardless of play calling, whatever, like, just the ability to manage the game, they just do it so well. Timeouts the right time, clock management, when to throw the challenge flag, when not to, all that kind of stuff. you just don't see it. Like I feel like he's just on the sidelines, and it's just here's your little sign on the door, head coach Matt Eberflus. Like that he's just not the head coach.
Yeah, I think it's just so frustrating and just the same cycle over, like I'm saying, and he just has, like you said, struggled to like maintain like any type of competency on the sidelines, and just it over and over again, just lack of game management, and to keep him, it's just frustrating. I'm just so frustrated.
So, what are your thoughts on the draft, though? I mean, because we obviously have Carolina's 1-1 overall, and then we have the 9th pick. I've seen, mock trades with Atlanta, even with Washington at 2, and then the Patriots. I think the Patriots is the most likely one to happen at 3, and we just flip flop. But I mean, there's rumors of Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze. I mean, I've even seen Brock Bowers, which Brock Bowers is an incredible tight end talent, but we don't need that. Like, it'd be awesome to have him, yeah, but we have
I think
an
Cole
offensive line
Kmet's
that's
good
bad.
enough.
I think Cole Kmet is like, I would say a top 50%, tight end in the league. Like, he's top half of the league. I feel like, without looking at the list, I feel like I can confidently say that.
There's other positions that are more important.
Yes.
Like I
With
really
bigger
want
holes that need to be filled. The offensive line is number 1.
I really want Marvin Harrison, because I think there's enough good O linemen that you can get an O lineman with that 9th pick.
We could get an alignment at 9.
That will still be like one of the top 2 or 3 in the draft. It's just I think a new offensive coordinator with Harrison, with Moore, with Fields. The running backs were solid as the end of the year went on. Roschon Johnson was very good.
I like
Herbert was very good.
That was a very good pickup.
You're starting to see it come together a little bit, and then the play calling from Getsy was just so awful. Especially
the Packers game, he decided to run up the middle every single time.
Yeah, it's that's not going to work. Like
if you're going to have a quarterback who his strongest ability is scrambling, running the football,
like creating plays.
Yeah, you don't just take the ball out of his hands. And the main majority of our offense was just run up the middle. I feel like you watch a Bears game, it's just Khalil Herbert 3-yard rush.
Yeah, and people are upset with Fields for holding on to the ball too long, and deservedly so. But at the same time, you can't throw it away every down. And then I saw videos and stuff of the routes that receivers were running. It's that you're doing nothing to get open at all. There was
Fields is not set up for success here.
There was no creativity in those routes at all. There was no nothing. You're just hoping for DJ Moore to make a play.
And you're hoping a slant to DJ Moore and then he runs for 15 yards. That's what the hope was.
I think if we get Harrison, we get another O-lineman, we keep beefing it up. We get a creative offensive coordinator. I think this team can for sure make the playoffs. I don't want to talk myself into Super Bowl contending yet by any means, but I don't think the division is out of reach at all. I don't think the Lions are that much better. We should have
beat them twice.
We should have beat them twice. Yeah. I don't think the Lions are that much better. I think the Packers are not that much better than us. Obviously if we fix some things and stuff like that, but it's just
it's frustrating.
I gotta think, and part of what I think, not to be conspiracy theory or anything, but I think McCaskey's just aren't giving Poles, Kevin Warren, those two guys the money that they want to be able to do things.
Well, because they know that they don't have to shell out a crap ton of money to get people to come to their games and support their team. Like, I mean, Soldier Field is always packed. Like, people are going to still support the Bears even though it's tough, and they're still going to come to the games. They're still going to, you know, buy season tickets, spend money at the stadium, buy jerseys, accessories, merch, whatever it may be. Like, that's just how it is, and they just don't. The organization's just so bad. Like, it's just bad. Like, this is one of those organizations in sports where, like, you just, like, know it's bad.
I was
It always
listening
will
to
be.
the um, Barstool Chicago guys. They did like an emergency podcast about Eberflus staying, and Barstool Chief was talking about how like we honestly forget like this season was like so dysfunctional from both a team and like an organizational standpoint that like we forget about how like all those lawnmowers got stolen in the middle of the season. It's like that wasn't even close on the list of dysfunctional things that happened this year. It just like shows like how poorly this organization is run. I I think obviously like I don't want to be crude in this by any way, but I think I hope that once Virginia McCaskey does pass, and I hope that's not for a while for her sake and for her family's sake, but I hope that once that does happen, that the team is sold to someone who actually cares about winning. Like,
Yeah, just not for the fact that they own a football team.
because like this is, I feel like George House is like turning in his grave right now, seeing what his great grandsons and stuff are doing to this team, and like just like how poorly they're running it and how not interested in winning they are, uh, and not interested in spending the money that's required to be a winning organization in the NFL. When you're getting these like huge TV deals and like Soldier Field sold out every weekend, and like you said, the concession, like the money, the revenue is not an issue at all for the Chicago Bears. Like,
People will still come and support.
and it's just like if you're getting all that money, like you got to spend it every once in a while, and like now was the time to spend it because you don't have to spend it on Fields yet. Like you don't have to give out that quarterback second contract level money yet. And so it's like, all right, now's the time to spend the money on the rest of the team. And they just didn't do it. And they didn't spend the money on the coaching staff. It's like throw a number at Vrabel and Harbaugh, get fresh blood in here. Like obviously it sucks that Fields would have to go through that transition or whatever, but or at that point then you could give up on Fields. But now it's like you can't draft a quarterback again when you're in a playoffs or bust mode for your coach, and then have another time where, like we already talked about, but another time where a quarterback is coming in and likely has a coaching change in his second year. So it's like they just routinely set themselves up for failure every time.
I wanted Mike Vrabel so bad. He's just like he's one of those guys. I mean, everyone in Tennessee loved him. Like the teams that he was taking to the playoffs and winning divisions with were not good. They were just in a bad division, like they may have snuck in. Like I think they went to the AFC Championship one year. Like they were not good, but like people they played hard for him. Like he knows how to control a locker room, um, like just rally together a group of guys, like and just build a culture. Like there's people want to say there's like a Bears culture, like they had that club dub thing, or whatever. Like it's not. Like there's not really a culture there. It's just like no one wants to come there. People that do are like rookies that get drafted and like they're all we're on an NFL team now, awesome. Like, but it's not. It should be like a major landing spot for free agents, and it's not. Like it's just not enticing to anybody. Nobody wants to come to Chicago. Um, it's it's frustrating. I that's the word of the day is frustrating.
Yeah. So I guess from here we probably look into options for Fields. Like I think that's on the next thing on the list, the to-do list for Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles. But uh, But yeah, now you got another big decision that you got to make. Like I said, I think now it has to be keeping Fields. Like
You have to trade that pick.
I I I think you just can't put a rookie quarterback in that situation
You
again.
have
But
to trade it, but you can't like diminish the pick that bad. Like I don't think you can go outside of like the top 6, top 5. Like you have to find a way to get Marvin Harrison Jr. or Rome Odunze. Like if you're gonna keep Fields, you have to draft around him now. Like the
yeah,
defense is pretty good. Another thing, you have to pay Jalen Johnson. That's like draft Fields. Like that's a big decision. Like you have to pay him. Like he's a very good corner. Like we can't just let him walk.
yeah, yeah. So some big
We'll see what
decisions.
happens. They'll do something crazy that we never thought would happen, and it'll just put us in the hole another 5 years.
Yeah. But all right. With that being said, can move on to some basketball now. Like I said last night, both the number 1 and 2 team go down. Let's start it off with Nebraska beating Purdue on the road, 88-72. Uh, Trey Kaufman-Renn, after scoring 23 points against Illinois last Friday, has 0 points and didn't even take a shot last night against Nebraska. Edey, they slowed Edey down a ton in the first half. Edey only had 2 points in the first half. Ended
He
up
had
with
foul trouble, didn't
15.
he?
Yeah, yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit, but
They went like Nebraska went like a huge run when he was out for I think it was some stretch of minutes, but they went on some huge run while he was out.
yeah, yeah. And in those runs, uh, I will say one of the most fun players I've had, or some of the most fun I've had watching a single or like an
I
individual
know who you're
player
gonna say.
in the last couple of years has been Keisei Tominaga. He is awesome.
He's
He
electric
just
to watch.
chucks, and then the celebrations and everything are awesome. At the end of the game, he was like waving the student section to run onto the floor uh, in the court storm. But I said this from the beginning of the year. Uh, I really think Nebraska, like, I'm not saying they're a top 10 team in the country. I'm not going that far. But I think Nebraska is a really good team. Like, I love Tominaga. I think they fixed uh, the front court problems enough with Rink Mast, our former Brave. He had 18 last night, too. So big game from him against Edey. Uh, but like they got a good team, and Hoiberg off the bench made some plays too. He had that one steal in the layup, and then a three, like in the middle of one of those big runs when right as Purdue was kind of starting to close it back in after halftime. Um, they just went on a big run in about the middle of the second half or early second half, something like that. But like this is a good team in a kind of relatively down Big Ten. So I would not be surprised to see the Cornhuskers called on Selection Sunday, and this is a big resume win for them for that.
Yeah, this is a kind of a weird Big Ten season because even though Purdue um, is I still currently the number 1 team in the nation, I feel like the Big Ten's like wide open.
Yeah,
I mean, you thought Michigan State would be up there as well. Illinois is kind of taking a little bit of a slide, but it feels like it's wide open. And like I wouldn't count Nebraska out for like a Big Ten tournament championship. I mean, it's definitely possible. Um, but on the Purdue side, this is no hate to Mason Gillis at all, but Purdue's not going to win many games if he is your leading scorer. And that's no hate to Mason Gillis or anything like that. It's just he cannot be the guy that's going to score 16 points and lead your team in scoring and you expect to win. That's just not going to happen.
yeah. The guards struggled, especially like uh, in those last. I think it was the last 4:29 I saw somewhere, but last 5 minutes or so, Purdue only scored 2 points, and Nebraska did a great job. They were up like 7 or 8, maybe 10 or something like that, around like that 5 minute mark left. And that could have easily been a time where that lead kind of starts to get chipped away, chipped away, chipped away. and all of a sudden you're looking at like a one possession lead with a minute left or something like that. Uh, they continued to pressure Purdue's guards, and like you've seen it throughout the year that like I feel like every time that you think that Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith are kind of turning the corner and kind of starting to like be able to handle pressure, like they did it against Arizona, uh, but then there's games like Northwestern that they can't do it against, and obviously this game Nebraska that they can't do it, and it's like uh, I don't know. It's just like right when you think they're turning a corner, then Nebraska like starts heating them up in the last 5 minutes, and instead of kind of playing passive, Hoiberg went all in and kept the pressure on the Purdue guards, and they weren't able to do anything in those last 5 minutes and not able to make a comeback. So credit to Hoiberg for that decision to kind of keep that pressure on. Whereas some teams would maybe try to lay back a little bit and try to play a little bit more defensive instead of keeping the pressure up or anything. But yeah, this Purdue team, I think they're still fine. I mean, Nebraska shot lights out with scoring 88 points, so it's like shot what 51% from the field, 61% from three. So it's like Nebraska's not going to do that every time. Like Purdue kind of just got a great night from Nebraska, so like I'm not too concerned about Purdue, uh, but I do think Nebraska's for real. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, and I want to trust Purdue, but you can't because of these type of games. I mean, they win the Maui, and they beat Marquette, and they beat a good Tennessee team. Like we gave them their flowers, whatever. But we were all hesitant to be like, Purdue's legit now because of the stuff that seems to always happen when Purdue plays like these type of games. Not to say Nebraska's a bad team at all, but they definitely should have won that game. They're a better team than Nebraska.
Yeah,
Then the Northwestern game, and then they beat Arizona. Like it's like I said, I think after they won the Maui, like it's just gonna be an up and down season for Purdue, and it's just feels like how it always is. And I feel like this also might be setting up for another possible early tournament exit. Because if you have one of these games again against any team in the tournament, I mean, upset alert is definitely possible.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Anything else on this one?
No.
We'll move over to the number two team, losing also on the road in a conference game last night. A little Hilton Magic over in Ames, Iowa. Iowa State with the 57-53 win over Houston, their first loss of the year. You had Emmanuel Sharp with 20, Jamal Shed with 14. And other than that, you did not really get anything from Houston. LJ Cryer only had 5 points. Only let's see, 5 points off the bench. So you didn't really get any production there. And then your other two starters combined for 9. So you had Sharp and Shed with 34 of the team's points, and then you had another 14 from the rest of your starters. So like just Houston, I feel like the last couple of years has always kind of been a team that relied on their defense. Like obviously they held Iowa State to 57, uh, but and especially considering like the kind of the start that Iowa State got out to, like they're pretty hot. So to hold them the rest of the game after that kind of hot start to very few points, obviously throughout the span of a game. Uh, but they're a team that's always kind of relied on their defense, but that can get scary a little bit sometimes. Like we talked about, I feel like we talked about it a ton last year, especially in the tournament with teams like Virginia and Tennessee and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I was just about to say it's like Virginia.
Yeah, they're just a team that relies a little bit too much on their defense. You thought a guy like LJ Cryer, I mean, he's having a solid season. Not like obviously like they're the number two team in the country. Like this was gonna happen. They weren't gonna win every game, especially in the loaded Big 12 right now, uh, but their next game's a road game at TCU on Saturday, so they're kind of getting a rude awakening to the difference between the Big 12 and the AAC, and kind of seeing this gauntlet start to happen. So I also just think like we can also look at this game from a whole college, like the whole perspective of college basketball as a whole. Uh, I don't think there's like a standalone great team. Like obviously, it's easy to say that with last night with both the number 1 and 2 teams losing, but I think Purdue has their flaws, and I think they're big flaws. I think Houston has their flaws with the lack of offensive scoring, and that's a big flaw. Like I think all these top teams do have flaws, whereas in the past we've seen like a Baylor team from a couple years ago that was just a wagon. Gonzaga that same year was a wagon that just fell short against Baylor in the national championship. But we've seen in the past couple years like some teams that obviously that doesn't mean that they're going to win the NCAA tournament because it's so hard to predict who wins that tournament with it being a single elimination and everything. But uh, there's a lot of teams in college basketball with flaws. I don't think there's a standalone like best team in the country like we've had in the past a little bit sometimes. But yeah, Houston obviously the big offensive flaw there for them, and that showed last night.
Yeah, and like you did say, it is like a rude awakening to go into Big 12 play like this. I mean, the Big 12 this year is like gauntlet. I mean, you got Texas Tech, Baylor, Kansas State, Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma. Like, there's a lot of good teams that you have to win night in and night out with, and it's going to be a different type of season, obviously, for Houston. I mean, I know this is the first loss, but when you go from the AAC to Big 12, there's a large gap in the skill level of the teams that you're going to be playing in conference play.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just looking at some of these shooting stats from last night for Houston, 38% from the field, 27% from three, only 67% from the free throw line. Only got there 12 times too, and 16 turnovers, the big thing for them. Uh, just a lot of turnovers that you're giving up, a lot of empty possessions. They fouled a lot, but sent Iowa State to the line 22 times, where Iowa State went 18 to 22. So a lot of opportunities for free points for Iowa State there, which is huge when you're trying to upset a team like that. That's usually so good defensively and so good at not fouling. To get all those free opportunities for free throws and everything, that was huge for Iowa State. But yeah, like I said, I think from the bigger picture point of view, like especially for Houston, like getting into the Big 12, obviously it's going to help them as a whole, like uh, be prepared for the NCAA tournament, like playing a lot more good teams. But kind of this stretch coming up, they got at TCU, Texas Tech at home, who's been a really good team. Kind of get a little break with UCF on the road, but then you go through a gauntlet with at BYU, a good Kansas State team at home, at Texas, and at Kansas. So kind of like, what is that? Like 6 of their next 7 games are, or 5 of their next 6 games are against really good teams, and several of those are on the road. Like especially wrapping that stretch up with Texas and Kansas on the road. So, and BYU on the road. So you play three ranked teams on the road over the next couple weeks. So things are gonna get real for Houston real quick, and they're gonna have to figure out a way to score.
I also feel like they're gonna beat like a good Oklahoma team, like a good Texas team or something like that. They'll like blow them out of the water, and they'll be like, we'll be all back in on Houston. Like I don't think Houston's bad by any means, but
No,
I just
yeah.
feel like that's just how it's gonna go. Like they're gonna beat one of these teams just by a huge margin. As far as AP poll goes, I feel like Kansas is probably the number 1 team in the nation now, AP poll wise. You have to think probably Purdue will maybe slide down to 2, Houston probably to 4, then UConn might slip in that 3 spot, if that's how it all shakes out.
Yeah, probably. What was it? Probably what's going to happen. I mean, Tennessee's got an opportunity for a big game tonight at Mississippi State. That'll be a tough game. I'm really excited to watch that one. So, yeah, I'll probably see that. Kansas, who they got this weekend? We got UCF tonight and then Oklahoma. So, not an easy game against Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma, excuse me, a little bit overrated. I know they got a great record and everything, but they still haven't really played anyone. And when they did, it was Carolina, and they just never really looked in that game very much at all. Uh, but yeah, I mean, that that's just how it's going to be in the Big 12 this year. I think for everyone. Like I think you're going to see Kansas stumble a few times too. So I think that's just how it's going to be this year, honestly.
Um, while I'm looking here at the AP poll, someone who snuck into the top 25 recently, Utah State, number 20 in the country, 14-1. One loss is to the Bradley Braves. Just thought I'd throw that out there real quick.
There you go. Brother Braves, they're starting to turn around too. We can turn
They
this
are.
into the Valley Minute if you'd like. Since Hickman's been back, they've started to turn around a little bit.
Yeah, Hickman being out definitely hurt us for a while.
Let's see, who do they got? They got Evansville.
We got Evansville tonight.
Shout out Coach Rags at Evansville, but hoping for a loss there from the boy with big Bradley win. Southern Illinois next week will be a big one with the way Xavier Johnson's been playing. Still got to go to Indiana State. Still got to go to Drake at the end of the year. But yeah, 10-5. Let's see, what are the Valley standings? Those two games they lost in December were tough. Starting out 0-2 in the conference. It's not make things
The
easy at
DuQuoin's
all.
loss was bad.
The which one?
DuQuoin's loss.
Duquesne.
Is that how it's actually spelled?
Yeah.
Oh, that was bad. I've always called it DuQuoin's. I'm not lying.
But that one doesn't count because it wasn't on TV. So
There was some guy though that was in the stands who like streamed it on Twitter, like,
really.
from his phone. Like he's like went live on X. He went live on X and he streamed it. So I did tune in for a little bit and got to watch it.
But yeah, Bradley's been turning around too a little bit. Guess what? Some other scores from last night. Kentucky with a win over Mizzou. Texas with a big road win over Cincinnati.
Buzzer beater.
Yeah, 74-73. Texas A&M falls to Auburn. They're now 9-6. Texas A&M, a team that both of us were pretty high on at the beginning of the year, and they're just struggling to kind of get things going there. DePaul with another tough loss. They are now 3-12. Them and Louisville are the only two teams to not have I think, Ken Palm top 200 win this season. So Tony Stubblefield still struggling up there in Chicago with DePaul. Another ranked team went down last night. Boise State with a big home conference win over Colorado State, 65-58. Baylor with a close one. That game was pretty close throughout. They ended up pulling away a little bit, 81-72 over BYU. Utah State, like you mentioned, big win over Wyoming last night. Your Dukies took care of Pitt by 22, and San Diego State survived a road scare from San Jose State, 81-78. Some pretty solid games tonight too. Obviously, the Butler Bulldogs trying to shake a little 2-game skid that were 3-game skid that we're on right now with a win over Marquette. We'll see how that goes. Tennessee playing Mississippi State. Breaking news, actually. We can talk about this too. Nick Saban is retiring.
Wow.
Sources tell ESPN and also the Empty Gym podcast.
Yeah. Breaking news, Empty Gym podcast reporting Nick Saban is retiring.
Yeah, so took that Alabama or that Michigan loss pretty tough. But
I actually have not gotten the notification yet.
Yeah, I didn't even get a notification for you. I just saw it. Shout out Trilly Donovan. I'm in a group chat with Trilly Donovan and several other people, and someone in the group chat said it. So that's how I found out. But anyways, back to this. Like I said, Tennessee goes to Mississippi State tonight. That'll be a tough game for Tennessee on the road. In the I can't remember what they call that arena, but anyways, Mississippi State. They got their big man back, whose name escapes me right now. Tolu Smith. Tolu Smith. He is back for conference play, so that'll be a tough game for Tennessee. Carolina goes to NC State tonight. Wisconsin goes to Ohio State. Wisconsin, the only team that's still undefeated in conference play in the Big Ten. UConn going to Xavier, and Oklahoma going to TCU. So some good games tonight. Let's see what Saturday's got. Northwestern Wisconsin should be solid.
Revenge game for the Blue Devils.
Revenge game. Oh, against Georgia Tech.
I hate that. Like, I think it was Duke's Barstool account. They posted like revenge game on Saturday, and I'm like, who are we playing? Georgia Tech. The fact that we have to call it Georgia Tech revenge game just sucks.
Yeah.
This is not fun.
There you go, revenge game. Oklahoma, Kansas, which is on ESPN Plus, so that's kind of absurd. A top 10 matchup on ESPN Plus, not even on network television. San Diego State goes to New Mexico. I know Mikey T is a big Mountain West guy. I'm sure he'll be tuned into that one. Penn State goes to Purdue. They're looking to bounce back, obviously, from last night. BYU, UCF, Georgia Tech, Duke. So some solid games Saturday. I feel like we still haven't gotten that big Saturday slate that usually comes more in February, like once the NFL playoffs are over. But some solid games this week coming up in this weekend. But any thoughts on any of those?
I'm just excited because I feel like now's after the holidays and everything, New Year starts. Like you start to see like the bigger picture all come together in a way. Like you really start to find out who's good and who's bad. Like not when teams are 7-0 and they played non-con schedule. Like you find out who's the real deal and who's not the real deal. So I like just this time of year is nice.
Yeah, conference season's always awesome.
It's always nice because like you said, we had the number 1 and number 2 team go down last night. It's just upset.
Yeah, exactly. Especially like, I love the way the Big Ten does it too. Like where their schedule's just like so random. Where like I feel like there's a Big Ten game on like every night. So
it's weird.
Like a lot of the other conferences kind of do like teams play like I know the Big 12 forever would do like Saturday, Monday because they would do Big Monday on ESPN. I don't know if they still do that now, but so like that was always the Big 12 schedule. Pac-12 still does the travel partners, so they still do like Thursday, Saturday, or Thursday, Sunday. So, but I do enjoy the Big Ten schedule where like every night after I get home from class or practice or whatever, it's just like there's a Big Ten game on tonight. And tonight it's Wisconsin, Ohio State, which I'm very pumped up about. Other Big Ten news, actually, I saw that Indiana now broke the Division I record for air balls in a game last night against Rutgers with 26.
Did you see the play-by-play of that, like the screenshot?
No.
I saw it on Twitter. It looked like somebody. No, not trying to throw hate at you here, but I did see someone like quote tweeted it and said, "This is like Iowa versus Illinois football." And it was literally turnover, missed layup, turnover, missed shot, whatever it may be. Like it was like 2-2 for so many like possessions. It was ridiculous.
I saw some clips of it from last night that Ant Wright posted. Shout out Ant Wright, big Big Ten guy, always posts a bunch of clips and stuff. It was like a clip of, I think it was Mbako shooting a free throw that just was a line drive bullet at the front of the rim. That just clanked off the front of the rim. Trey Galloway with an air ball free throw short. Uh, and Baco with a three from the wing that hit the backboard on the other side of the rim. A Trey Galloway three in the corner that airballed long by like 4 feet, and then another Mbako three from the corner that airballed long the other way by like 4 feet. And it was just brutal. So IU's shooting struggles continue. They lost to Rutgers last night. So, uh, yeah, so some more Big Ten news for you. The Big Ten stat of the day, record-breaking performance from IU last night. But I guess we can wrap it up with our winners and losers of Christmas break. We're talking about doing this kind of. Obviously, there's a ton of stuff that happened over the last couple weeks, and Christmas break's always a really weird time in college basketball too, which kind of makes it pretty entertaining because you got guys who are going home for a couple days and then coming back and have like 3 days of practice and then play a game after sitting on their couch for 5 days, or guys who don't get to go home and they're upset about that and miss their family and stuff like that, and that affects how they play. You got I remember I was listening to Mark Titus talk about it like right before Christmas break. He's like talking about all the random like variables and factors that go into games over Christmas break. He was joking about how like you got figuring out the present to get for your girlfriend and like when she's gonna visit over Christmas break, stuff like that. So like there's just a ton of things that go through these players' minds over a break like this. When like you're looking at it from a fan perspective and they're like, oh, they don't even have school for these next couple of weeks. So it's like their only focus will be on basketball. So you're hoping to like get some wins and stuff over like that over Christmas break. But there's a million things running through these guys' heads over break without even school going on. So a lot of crazy stuff happens over the break. But yeah, so we can do some winners and losers from over the break. I'll hand it off to you first. Who's one of your winners from this last couple weeks?
I'm gonna rattle off 3 teams here for you. I'll be quick. Don't worry. First off, I'm gonna go give to Duke. More specifically, the 3-point shooting and Jared McCain to center it down. They're starting to string some wins together, which is good to see. The 3-point shooting has drastically improved. I think like Filipowski was 3 for 3 in the first half last night. The Syracuse game, they didn't make a 3 in the first half, and then they went 8 for 8 in the second half. And then Jared McCain is, I think before the Pittsburgh game, the last 3 games, he was averaging like 23 points per game or something, some absurd number. I don't remember what it was. But it's good to see him especially take that role because he's a very good shooter, and that's something that this Duke team needs. And I'm just glad that it's all starting to come together in a way. Second team, kind of hate to do it, but I'll throw UNC in this conversation too. I feel like RJ Davis has solidified himself as one of the best guards in the country, and I feel like they have a very good supporting cast around RJ Davis and Baycott that like allows Baycott and RJ Davis to do whatever they want and allows RJ Davis to average 20 points per game or whatever he's averaging. Like Cormac Ryan's really good. Harrison Ingram's really good. Seth Trimble's starting to play a little better. Cadeau's taking a step forward.
Yeah.
I think that's a good team. I don't have any joy in saying that, but I feel like as a college basketball analyst, I feel like I should throw him in there.
Yeah, I think Cadeau, like you talked about, the more he gets comfortable, and now you see like you said with RJ Davis kind of solidifying his role as not only like the best player on that team, which people were like, is it RJ Davis? Is it Baycott? Ingram had a hot start to the year. They're like, where does he play in? But now, like over these last couple games, you're kind of starting to see RJ Davis kind of take over that role. Big win this past Saturday at Clemson. Uh, Not an easy place to play, especially with the job Brad Brownell has done there. PJ Hall is an All-American at this point, maybe. He's
He's good.
averaging like 24 and 12 or something like that. Like he's he's crazy. So, but yeah, Cadeau's getting more comfortable in the offense, and I feel like also like especially with the way R.J. Davis has been playing, Cadeau feels a lot less pressure too.
Yeah.
That he can
Oh
kind
yeah.
of just like flow in the offense and doesn't really like have to go out and make a play, but like he kind of and
It's
that kind of
all the
takes
pressure is not centered towards him.
yeah, being and like that, it can definitely feel that way, especially as a freshman point guard. A freshman point guard anywhere, but especially a freshman point guard for a team like North Carolina that's had so many good point guards forever. Uh, to come into that role and have RJ Davis kind of take alleviate a lot of that pressure from him has been huge for him. But yeah, your last team.
Um, my last team's Kentucky. I, in a way, I feel like they've snuck into the top 10. Like it just feels like they just shot up there
You're
real
kind of
quick.
not paying attention about him. Yeah, it's just like
Yeah, they just kind of snuck under the radar. Um, this is one of it feels like Cal's best coaching jobs he's had in the more recent years. But the freshmen are legit,
oh yeah,
and
you
they're
got
all
two
starting
top
to.
15 picks
Oh
coming off
yeah,
the
they're all
bench.
starting to figure it out. Like this is a dangerous Kentucky team,
Yeah, they brought
and that's not something that we thought at the beginning of the year.
yeah, I thought they'd be kind of more like a frisky team, something like that. Like I thought that they would figure it out as the year went on. They're figuring it out a lot quicker, and then
I
like
mean, yeah, now they're like maybe like a 2 or 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. Like if
yeah,
I thought they'd be maybe in 7, 8, somewhere around that range.
yeah. Since that UNC Wilmington loss, they got a win over a good Penn team that beat Villanova, a neutral site win over North Carolina, a road win against Louisville. Say what you want about Louisville, but a road win against them when that's their Super Bowl, no matter how bad they are, like that's tough to beat a team by 20 in that type of environment. Uh, Illinois State, Antonio Reeves' former team, took care of them. Florida this weekend, that was a really impressive win in my eyes. To go into Gainesville, Riley Couple, or Cupel, whatever his last name is, great player. Uh, to get a win there, and then kind of handily beat Mizzou last night too. They got Texas A&M this weekend, like we talked about earlier. Texas A&M kind of been a little bit disappointing, but still, like I feel like they can turn it on at any time, with especially with those guards with Taylor and Radford. Uh, but yeah, they've kind of snuck under the radar and kind of you got as Bradshaw has entered the picture, that all kind of flowed together much better right off the bat than I thought it might have. Like especially with freshmen, like they had those first 6 or 7 games, whatever it was, without Bradshaw, and like you saw them that they were playing really well. Almost got that win against Kansas. Probably they definitely should have got that win against Kansas. And then to like throw in another top 15 or whatever recruit, uh, that's not easy to do. But they've done that well. Got Rob Dillingham's coming off the bench. Reed Shepherd's coming off the bench. Uh, and those are two of the best players in this upcoming draft. So, yeah, I really like that Kentucky pick. Uh, my team, I'm gonna go with a Big East team right now. I'm gonna go with the Seton Hall Pirates. Wins over Creighton, UConn, Providence. Their one loss is to Xavier by 20, so a little weird. You got all those three big wins, and then your one loss is a road loss to Xavier by 20. But uh, Shaheen Holloway's got them playing really feisty. They're a great defensive team. Dawes is a great offensive player. You get Dre Davis is a pretty solid offensive player. So he's been kind of turning that around faster than what I thought it would be. Last night they kind of survived at Georgetown. Got snuck away with a 74-70 win. I don't think Georgetown's nearly as bad as they were last year, but coming to Hinkle Fieldhouse on Saturday. So another big test for the Pirates against the Bulldogs this Saturday. But yeah,
Boots
that's
on the
my
ground.
boots will be on the ground. But yeah, that's my winner of Christmas break. Your loser, of Christmas break?
Yeah, my loser Christmas break, Florida Atlantic. They've had a couple bad losses. They lost at Florida Gulf Coast and at Charlotte after on the 23rd of December beating Arizona by 1. Maybe it's what's it called? Sophomore slump.
Yeah,
Is that the right term that I'm thinking of?
kind of. Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like we see this a lot though. Like a team that like is so good the year before, and like I feel like it leads to failure more than success when you kind of get all these guys that are like, let's run it back, especially a team that wasn't supposed to be good the year before.
The expectations are just so high because I think we said at the beginning of the year too, like when you last year in the tournament, it's not to say they didn't have anything to lose, but they played like they had nothing to lose. There were no expectations for them going into the tournament. I mean, nobody saw it coming. And then now, you like you said, you bring everyone back. Dusty May signs that 10-year deal. You bring back John L. Davis, Elijah Martin, Vladislav Golden. Like you bring all these guys back. Like you said, let's run it back again. You now have expectations, and that it definitely does something to you mentally.
Yeah, for sure. I think you see it a lot. Like I said, with those teams that have no expectations, have a great year, and then everyone's like, all right, let's run it back. Like we'll be just as good. Especially like I feel like in this era of NIL too, where it's like uh, you got guys probably with like different deals and stuff like that, making a little bit different money that can cause some turmoil in the locker room, stuff like that. Uh, and then just like you said, obviously just the expectation of like we're not uh, like they have the target on their back now. Like they're being hunted, not the hunter anymore. So it's like that can take a big toll on people, especially with a team that decides to run it back, and now you got a whole different set of like I guess expectations is again the word, but that you're expected to not only reach that level again, which reaching the Final Four is obviously really hard to do in college basketball, but now you have the expectation of not only reaching that, but even getting above it, like getting to the national championship game, winning a national championship, something like that. And it definitely takes a toll, but great pick there. I'm going to go with kind of a dumpster fire in the Big Ten right now. The Michigan Wolverines. They have now lost 4 games in a row since the win over Eastern Michigan. Double overtime loss to Florida. A loss to McNeese State, which Will Wade's got McNeese State playing really well. A loss to Minnesota, which also Minnesota looks like they could be a pretty good team. And then the most strange one, in my opinion, this last Sunday, the loss to Penn State when they were playing at the Palestra. Phil Martelli, the lead assistant for Michigan, longtime coach at St. Joe's in Philadelphia, coached a lot of games at the Palestra. Juwan Howard takes a step back and says, Martelli, you can be the head coach today. I don't think I've ever seen that before in a regular season game. Like you see it obviously like in the NFL and stuff like that in preseason where like they let the coordinators coach the game, be the head coach, stuff like that. Like maybe you see it in an exhibition game or something like that, but I've never seen it in a regular season game, much less a conference regular season game, when you're in the middle of this 3-game losing streak and you got to figure it out and turn it around. So it's like if you want to hand the job to Martelli, uh, because like he's the one that you want to turn it around. Like, what does that say about you? Like, if you're not the one that can do this job, but yeah, Michigan's just a dumpster fire right now, so they're my loser of Christmas break.
Well, Juwan Howard also did punch an assistant coach, so I wouldn't put anything past him.
That is true. He did
Um,
strike a man.
no, I think that's a good pick too. You brought it up, but I mean, Juwan Howard, I don't I don't think he's that good of a college basketball coach. Like he had his, Fab Five run at Michigan. He had a pretty solid NBA career. I just don't think he's a college basketball coach.
He started out with with Beeline's guys, who were all very good, had some good seasons with them, and then had the hype not only of being Jawan Howard and being back in Michigan, stuff like that, but also like the success that Beeline created and the success that Beeline's guys created, that kind of helped him through those first couple of years. And now you're kind of starting to see him do it on his own, and it just has not been that good. So
If I'm Michigan, I'd get him out of there.
I can't imagine that there's not like a mutual parting of ways or something like that once the season's over.
I
But
think he was trying to be the Harbaugh of men's basketball.
yeah, it just was not in the cards there. But yeah, that's all I got. Anything else before we wrap it up?
No, that's it.
So yeah, but good weekend of college basketball coming. The big Saturday slates, they're kind of like trickling in a little bit. So the big Saturday slates will be here soon, but we're starting to see conference play, night in and night out, great games. So it's been really fun to kind of get back into this. But yeah, that's all I got. Appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you next time.